Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology, and today we are going to take a look at Venus's retrograde in Leo, which is preparing to station and turn direct. I thought we would approach this in a slightly different way. Um, I have, over the past couple of months, collected a number of stories from clients and students, and those of you who wrote into the comment section using the hashtag grabbed and shared your stories. I've gathered a number of really good Venus retrograde stories that illustrate some of the ways in which Venus retrograde has been at work since turning retrograde late July and working through its entire process up to now as it's preparing to turn direct. I thought this would be a nice time to reflect. And what's cool about this is we're going to reflect in a way that can help you look at the area in your chart that Venus has been doing its work. So I hope that this will sort of almost act like a horoscope, but it's going to be I have a story to share for each of the 12 signs of the zodiac, each of the 12 rising signs that I've gathered from these different places, students, clients, and from social media. So that's what we're going to do today as a way of reflecting on what Venus retrograde has been doing as she prepares to turn direct. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe, share your comments in the comment section, click on the notification bell if you want to know when something new is happening or when I'm going live. You can find a transcript of any of my daily talks on the website, nightlightastrology.com. When you go over there, be sure to check out all of my readings and courses. Wait time on the readings is down now, which is nice. It's about 8 months, but that's better than 12. So, be sure to check that out if you want to get a reading in the new year. And if you have any questions about courses or readings, email us info@nightlightastrology.com. Okay, well, let's first take a look at the real-time clock as we always do so that we can actually see the transit that we're going to be talking about today. So the transit that we are looking at is Venus in Leo preparing to turn direct. And it's a good time right now because Venus is almost done with her cycle to reflect on where we've been. So this is going to, like I said, it's almost going to be like a horoscope, but we're going to be looking at stories that I've collected from all 12 rising signs throughout this Venus retrograde period. What have you been doing? What have you been learning? What's been happening? And this can also help you reflect on the same area in your own chart according to your rising sign. So you'll see here's Venus still retrograde. And, it's funny, but my pen doesn't seem to be working. Hold on just a second. Let me try this again. Here we go. Now, all right, here is Venus's retrograde, and let's take it forward just a few days. So you can see that Venus is coming to the end of her cycle, and you'll notice that she's stationing about Sunday, September 3rd, and then the direct motion comes in by September 5th. So the 3rd to the 5th is the period during which we're going to see Venus completing her journey, which is basically happening now as well. So as we are looking at this now, we can see that Venus is essentially at the same degree that she's going to be at when she turns direct already, and is barely moving now. So we're as good as at the station point, given that she's only going to move a matter of minutes before she stations over the next week. And I think that's a good time to sit back and go, okay, well, Venus still has to go forward in direct motion. So there's still more to come with the process that's been started this summer. But it's a good moment to reflect on where we've been and maybe what kinds of things have been happening in the different areas of our lives. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to almost do this like horoscopes, and I'm going to tell you like 12 different stories according to rising signs that can help you remind you of the house position that Venus has been in as she has been retrograde. And I'll just back this up like a few days so that we can get Venus still looking retrograde. And actually, I'll put it forward a day so you can see Venus is with the S above it. Venus is stationing. So with Aries, we land in the 5th house. And I'm just going to tell you the stories that I've collected. There was a lot of them, for some signs, more stories than others to sort through, but I picked ones that were pretty textbook so that you could really see them at work. So Aries, One woman wrote in and told us about the fact that during this Venus retrograde, after a number of failed attempts to conceive, she was finally able to conceive. That is a very much a Venus retrograde in the fifth house for an Aries rising person. So you can see that this person's Venus retrograde brought up issues around fertility and pregnancy in the fifth house and success. A benefic Venus retrograde, is not always, it's like, people sometimes think that all retrogrades are bad, but here's a Venus retrograde in the fifth where someone's had struggles getting pregnant, struggles with fertility, and they have conceived, and good luck to you with the rest of the pregnancy. Hope for you that it's smooth sailing. Anyway, we'll go forward and I'll just show you these little stories that popped up. So here's Taurus rising, which places the Venus retrograde process into the fourth house. Now, this was a little bit sad, but this person was pretty upbeat about it. They said that their parents, after many years of unhappiness, and they went into some details that I'll keep private, but after many years of unhappiness, and basically this person and their siblings all feeling like it would be better if their parents just divorced, well, they finally have decided to go ahead with a divorce during this Venus retrograde. And there you have it for this individual. That's a Venus retrograde in the fourth house of home, family, and parents. It's a sad story, but I mean, if what you say is true and this you really think is for the better, then I'm sure we all hope that it is as well. And although that can't be easy, I'm sure. So I hope you guys find some healing in all of this as well. Let's go forward to Gemini. It's interesting. This Gemini rising puts the Venus retrograde into the third house. Among other things, the third house is the place of siblings. And this person had a sister. Venus is also the natural ruler of sisters, who during this retrograde finally hit a rock bottom and decided to go to rehab for alcoholism. So again, like so interesting, the different ways in which the Venus retrograde can manifest. The Venus retrograde in the third house of siblings, ruling siblings, and especially sisters or women, a sister who hits rock bottom with alcohol. So again, best of luck to you and your sister. Prayers for healing and transformation. You put Cancer on the ascendant, and this person wrote in, and this was really interesting. And the reason that I wanted to share this one, though there were a couple of interesting ones for the second house with Cancer risings, but so when I'm a Taurus rising, so when Venus was retrograde in Gemini and was in my second house, we had to go through a change in payment processors, because essentially some payment processors look at astrologers like fortune tellers, and so they put us next to like pornography and guns as like a high risk merchant, and then you have to find high risk credit processors who will run your transactions through from your website. That happened to me and Nightlight back in 2020 when Venus was retrograde in Gemini in my second house. What I find so interesting was that this person went through the exact same thing. This is an astrologer who had to change payment processors. They were using, I think it was Stripe or something like it, Stripe or PayPal. But anyway, they were told that they were high risk and they were going to have like a limited amount of processing space or something like that. So they ended up going on a hunt for a different processor. And I thought that was fascinating, given that I literally went through the exact same process when Venus is retrograde in my second house. So I had to share that one because it was just kind of uncanny. Anyway, that is for Cancer rising. It's interesting. My wife is a Cancer rising, and during this Venus retrograde in her second house, she dealt with identity theft on one of her credit cards, and then got it ironed out. What's really funny is that the identity theft involved someone, I'll just put it this way. They bought something that was super Venusian with her card. And then she was like, what the heck? And it was like, anyway, I won't go into it, but Venus retrograde in the second house. I've heard some interesting stories, including Ashley had one too. So, okay, well, here is Leo, which places Venus into the first house. And I thought this was really funny. This was one of my clients who gave me permission to share, but she decided after I'll just put it this way. She's getting older, and I don't think she looks wonderful, but she was describing, as I'm getting older, I'm feeling very self-conscious about my skin and my face. And so she, for the first time, although having in the past had really negative opinions and judgments about people using filler or doing Botox, but she went and had those things done, and she feels a lot better. She was like, I feel like I'm really glad that I did this. And, you know, I don't feel like it looks unnatural. I feel like it just gave me a little boost. And, but that was her big Venus retrograde dilemma, was reaching this point where she had to say, you know what, I'm just going to do this because I think it'll make me feel better. And I'm not going to see it as something that's, she's not going to judge herself for it. So I thought that was a great Venus retrograde in the first house story. Simple, straightforward with your appearance, your actual physical appearance or aesthetic. Very Leo in the first house. All right, well, here's Virgo. This one is a little sad. We put Virgo on the ascendant, and then Venus is retrograde in the 12th house. And this is about a woman who has a teenage daughter that she came to find out, she discovered was what do you call it? With bulimia, where I'm sorry, I can't think of what making herself throw up. And this was something she wrote in about. And this is it's a heavy story, but so she discovered this and started getting her daughter help during this Venus retrograde in the 12th. Now, Venus represents daughters, sisters, different kinds of specific, like female friends, sisters, daughters. Those are all Venusian signatures. Venus retrograde in the 12th. Her daughter was secretly eating and then purging and like that, and had to get her some help. So that's a really heavy one. And yeah, thank you for sharing that one. And we wish you the best and hope that your daughter finds healing. And you as a mother too have to have been, I'm sure that was really rough. So, our hearts and thoughts are with you. Well, this one is interesting as well. This comes from the world of a religious community. This is a Libra rising who wrote in talking about the ongoing scandal and fallout in a group of people that she is a part of that was related to the denying of women the right to become gurus within her religious tradition, which comes from India. It's very appropriate for Venus retrograde in the 11th house, which can speak to the role of women and their changing status or resistance to giving women equal rights within different kinds of communities or groups. So the very Venus retrograde thing in the 11th house to be dealing with for this individual who's a Libra rising. All right, well, let's go to Scorpio. With Scorpio on the ascendant, we take Venus and place her retrograde into the 10th house. And I thought this was really interesting because this individual, this was also a client of mine who gave me permission. Well, at any rate, this person had a male boss who was just sounds like a real creep, and actually got fired during Venus's retrograde because of some complaints that were issued, not just by my client, but by other people too. And then after he lost his job, the company replaced that position with a woman who, at least for now, this person is, really happy with. So that was fascinating. To Venus retrograde in the 10th, a change with your boss because of misogyny and other, it sounds like kind of abusive characteristics of this male figure, he is let go of and replaced by a woman. That was another great Venus retrograde story to share. So let's go to Sagittarius. That's in the 10th house, by the way, with Scorpio. So Sag places Venus retrograde into the 9th house. This one is it's like a, like you'll meet a tall, handsome stranger, in a foreign marketplace or something. This individual had been dating and long distance relationship with a man in another country, and they've been seeing each other several times a year. And she decided to end the relationship with him because the long distance was getting to be too much. It was really a fascinating signature for Venus, the goddess of love, doing a retrograde in the 9th house, which is a place of foreign countries or long journeys. So no more long journeys. This distance is too much. Here's Capricorn. This was an interesting story that also came in through a client of mine. So this individual has Venus retrograde in the 8th house as a Capricorn rising, and her spouse, her husband's sister, and children came to live with them for a period of time that's not going to be that long, but it all happened during this Venus retrograde. They're still there, I believe. And we'll just say that this sibling fell on some hard times. And this woman was totally cool with her husband, sister, and kids coming to live. It wasn't like, oh no, this is terrible. But it was like, it's like an obligation to someone else that we have. It's a very 8th house Venus retrograde like thing to happen, that your spouse's sister and children come to live with you when Venus is retrograde in the 8th house, a place of karmic obligations, among other things. So Capricorn rising story that's pretty unique. Aquarius. So if we put Aquarius on the ascendant, then this Venus retrograde is in the 7th house. And this one was like, again, pretty textbook 7th house, like the boss in the 10th was. A lover from the past resurfaced for this woman who is dissatisfied in her own marriage at the time where her dissatisfaction with the marriage is sort of reaching a critical mass. This ex showed up and she was fighting off the temptation to cheat, which she described as, like emotional, like just reaching out, being in touch. I don't know if that cheating would go so far as, meeting up, or that there was, from the sounds of it, there was not a temptation to literally cheat, but to reach out to this person somehow and to connect with them during a hard time in their marriage. And that this felt like a test for this person during the Venus retrograde. Very textbook Venus retrograde in the 7th. All right. Well then, last but not least, with Pisces, this individual who also wrote in through the Grabbed series said that they lost a cat, a beloved cat, and that this had an intense cathartic effect on them. Those of you guys who have really beloved pets, first of all, Venus retrograde in the sign of the Lion in the 6th house, which was a house associated with small animals, here is signifying the death of a cat that has this very powerful, life transforming and healing effect on the person when the cat passes. That's a real thing. You wouldn't believe how many stories I heard, especially through our Roots and Spheres program, of people who were dealing with the passage of cats or things around cats with Venus retrograde in the sign of the big cat. Anyway, a really powerful story of personal transformation that came as a result of the death of a cat. Very Venus retrograde in the 6th, the place of animals, small animals especially. Anyway, so these are just some stories that I gathered in. They came from all of you, from some students and clients. I hope that these were useful for you. It just in reflecting on where you've been and maybe stimulating some of the topics of those houses and seeing if that helps you to notice a process that's been at work in your own life. Or at least to just appreciate the archetypes and how they're at work. Some retrogrades are stronger for some people than others, especially depending on where they land in your chart, maybe what planets they're stimulating in your chart, and so forth. But I thought these were great examples, so I hope that they illustrate some good things for all of you and help you start to reflect upon and digest this recent Venus retrograde. The station coming up, we'll do some more talking about Venus in the weeks ahead, especially since Venus now through direct motion is going to go back through the square to Jupiter, back through the square to Uranus, and so forth. So that should be pretty interesting to visit in the month of September. Anyway, that's it for today. I hope you guys are having a good one, and we will see you again soon. Take it easy, everyone. Bye.